Welcome to Sailing Avanti. We are Gerard and Jacqueline, sailing our 41-foot monohull Avanti around the world from Cape Town, South Africa.
Welcome to St. Lucia. We continue exploring this island that we arrived at last week. We plan to sail south to the famous Pitons, but first we have one more mountain to climb before we go. Today we're off to Pigeon Island. It's the island you can see behind me. It is today connected all the way to land around the bay because of land reclaim. So they dumped a bunch of sand and now Pigeon Island is just the little point of the bay that we're in, but we're going to go hike to the top, and apparently it's got a pretty little beach as well, so let's see what it holds. Pigeon Island is one of the most important historical sites on the island and can be visited by sea or via the causeway that connects the mainland to the island that was built in 1972. It's open to visitors every day of the year and costs 10 EC for locals and $10 for tourists. One could buy an annual pass, but that didn't really help us. This island doesn't just have ruins, a beautiful beach and twin peaks. There's also a cool little restaurant with a 2-for-1 cocktail special throughout the day and the best Wi-Fi we found in the entire St. Lucia. But more importantly, the island was originally occupied by the Caribs and then later by a privateer called Francois Leclerc in the 1500s. My maiden surname is de Klerk, thus, of course he is family of mine. For those of you that don't know, a privateer was someone who had his own ships and helped in battles. He joined the French and British sides on different occasions, and once a job or battle was finished, they tended to do whatever they wanted, and in most cases that meant piracy. Francois was also known as Peg Leg, as he lost one of his legs in a battle prior to occupying this island. So my long story to get to my point is I'm saying that this was a pirate island. History books might not agree with that statement 100%. In 1778, the island was under French rule, and they declared war on the British, who retaliated and took over both islands. They heavily fortified Pigeon Island and had most trees cut down so that they could keep an eye on the French ships of Martinique. This played a major role in the British defeating the French in the Battle of the Saints in 1782.
We head back to the boat for a nice sunset and a view of Pigeon Island from the anchorage before dinner.
It's mango season in the Caribbean, and the locals harvest them by picking the ones that have fallen off the tree or that's just about to fall off the tree naturally. So they tend to be a bit overripe, but luckily we found some ones that are not that ripe, because on a scorcher of a day like this, it's nice to have a fresh dinner. So I'm making a mango salsa that one can do in wraps or in pitas or anything like that. But we're just going to have the mangoes with some jerk chicken strips for dinner tonight. So you need 3 ripe mangoes. Delicious. And then some red onion that we actually found here in St. Lucia, which is awesome. And then actually a red pepper works better, but there was no red pepper, so we're going for green peppers. Or a green pepper, and then some chili. Now, because we normally do it with a jalapeno chili, but I don't have jalapeno here, so it's a local small chili. And because the chicken is very spicy, jerk chicken is a spice that you find in the Caribbean that's very spicy, and it's mainly, I have to remember now, it's mainly salt, onions, turmeric, and then red pepper and thyme, and then something that they call allspice. So it's quite potent. So with the spicy chicken, not going to do too much chili in here today, and then just 2 tablespoons of lime juice to bring out the zing and the flavor. And there, with a dash of salt. That's really up to you. You don't have to have the salt. I dropped some pepper. salt if you want, and then give it a good stir, and then you've got a bright summer dish in the heat that is the Caribbean in summer. Bon appetit!
Today we're tasting a Guinness Smooth. We don't really get it in South Africa, or we haven't seen it anywhere else. We saw it in the shops over here. It is a stout, but it's a little bit smoother, so not that heavy. So really good tasting. I would rather have this as a normal stout, so I would rate this probably for a stout an 8 out of 10.
It's not a secret that our fishing skills are questionable. So we head to a local fishing shop and spy on the gear that they have and make some adjustments to the fishing tackle we have.
We have started running out of these pre-made up fishing lures. So we've actually lost quite a few with the line being bitten off, and we've subsequently bought some steel leader line. So I'm just busy making up some lures with steel leader line and a nice sinker in these squid type lures and the hook on the end. So if the fish does bite past the lure, the line doesn't get bitten off. So hopefully we get a little bit more luck with these.
This has to be one of the most beautiful sunsets we've seen in the Caribbean, hands down. We saw some pretty ones on the crossing, but in the Caribbean we've been quite busy, so I think we've been missing them, and tonight we're just relaxing, having a glass of wine, and planning our trip down to the Pitons, and it's breathtaking.
The next morning we make an early start and head south to the Pitons. There's a lot of fishing activity in Rodney Bay, especially early morning, so it's important to have somebody on the bow checking for unmarked fishing nets. As we make our way out of the bay, we turn into the wind and hoist our mainsail. We also catch a glimpse of the sunrise over Rodney Bay, which we will probably never see again. As soon as we catch a bit of wind, we decide to unfurl the genoa. With Jackie on the helm, I decide to do this on my own, and it takes me a few minutes longer opposed to when she helps me. We start wondering how solo sailors do this all by themselves, and we're lucky to have another crew member on board. As soon as our sails are set, we slowly make our way south in a light breeze. Whenever we have a chance to put out our fishing lures, we do, in a quest to catch our own food, but the Caribbean fishing is a bit scarce, or at least for us. So what we normally use is these type of squid lures. For our sailing speed, they work quite well. They've got a little thick leader line, and then we just attach it with a clip to some hand lines on a reel, on a plastic reel. We use these plastic reels just to hand line. If the fish is heavy, I just use gloves to reel it in, so we don't have any fishing rods. We have lost quite a few of these because these leader lines are just thick fishing lines. So these game fish have quite big teeth. And we have started putting stainless steel leader lines on. So you can see this squiddy has a stainless steel leader on it. So that will prevent the the fish if the fish bites before the lure, then they tend to bite off the fishing line. So we've got quite a assortment of these bigger ones, smaller ones, and then really smaller ones that just float on the surface. In the Caribbean, there is, however, this floating seagrass that catches the hooks all the time. So we're still trying to figure out a way to prevent that. Maybe if we put heavier sinkers in these beaks so that they swim a little bit lower. But if you know of a clever way to avoid that, please comment. As soon as we set our fishing lines, we see something dragging behind the boat. Unfortunately, this is not a fish, and our continuous reeling in and out of our fishing lines for the day start, as we catch a lot of seagrass and unfortunately no fish. With Jackie trying her best to get some fish on board, there's always a job or two that can be done when the seas are calm and the sailing is smooth. Our main halyard has started to unravel and needs some urgent attention. I start by taping the end of the line and then cutting it a little bit shorter to get rid of the unraveled piece. Lastly, I put some whipping twine around the end of the line and I just burn the strands that stick out to make sure the ends are nice and secure, neat, and will not unravel again. All done, didn't take too long. Just putting in a stopper knot and then we're good to go. The Pitons is about 20 nautical miles from Rodney Bay. With calm winds on our beam, we get a chance to unfurl our genoa completely, and we have one reef in the main just for the gusts coming through. In the end, we take about 4.5 hours to reach the mountains. We're busy approaching the Pitons. At the moment the wind is quite light, as we expected it to be. The apparent wind is about 12 knots and we're just sailing about between 5 and 6 knots towards the mountains. When we get there we will turn in and probably motor into the mooring ball the last mile or so.
We've read and heard from previous sailors that this area has some serious gusts coming through the peaks, and it's safer to drop your sails earlier rather than later. And man, they weren't joking. Just before we grabbed our mooring ball, we had 30 knots on the nose. The waters around the Pitons and Soufriere Bay are all part of a marine reserve, and anchoring is not permitted. There are plenty of mooring balls available that one can grab and cost $20 a night. The more observant viewer will notice that the water is a bit darker than what you normally see when we anchor, and that's because of the depth. The mooring ball we end up grabbing is closer to shore than we've ever been before, maybe a few boat lengths, but it's over 45 meters or 150 feet deep. Guess we can't dive and check this one.
Join us in the next episode as we hike up the Pitons and show you the magnificent view from above. Thank you for watching this video, and please give us a like or feel free to subscribe or click on the Patreon link if you want to make a contribution to the making of these videos.